Hey, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Andy, you can't spell Group A without Lakers or something like that. They're 4-0 and they win Group A. They throttle Utah 131-99. Lots of good news to talk about. We'll get to it all next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. Always free, never behind a paywall, and Locked On Lakers on YouTube. It's where 22,000 or so subscribers are hanging out, talking about the Lakers dominating Group A in the first annual, I guess it's going to be the first annual in-season tournament in the NBA. They roll the Utah Jazz 131-99. They win Group A. They move on to the quarterfinals of this thing, and I think have earned themselves an extra home game. I don't entirely
Yes, they have.
understand it. Yeah, it's like,
yes,
okay, so there's something tangible. You get an extra home game.
They have home court to, I believe, open the quarterfinals of this tournament. They've clinched it, and then
all I meant was I wasn't sure if that meant like literally like they will get an extra home game. I don't know.
Look, I just know they have home court in the quarterfinals. Like a lot of people, I am figuring out this tournament as we go. But I will say that.
Go ahead.
The tournament, this is something actually Travis Rogers and I talked about. I was filling in on 710 ESPN in LA on the Travis and Sliwa show. Like, I like a lot of people, I think because of sort of the initial confusion and skepticism and cynicism about what this tournament even is, how it's going to operate, what does it all mean or whatever. I, like a lot of people, assumed the players would not take it seriously. They would not be invested in it. They would, most of them are worth tens or hundreds of millions of dollars already. They would poo-poo the idea of an extra $500K. I got to say, I've been completely wrong about this. Huh? And James Worthy on the Spectrum Sportsnet postgame show, he talked about how he wasn't really sure about this tournament, but he really likes it now. And something he brought up that I had not thought about before, but I think is interesting. He said, assuming the players take it seriously, which by all appearances they have, certainly the Lakers seem to have, but it seems like a league-wide thing. It kind of creates a dress rehearsal vibe of sorts for like the mentality and the process of the playoffs, because you're thinking about securing home court. You're thinking about winning games for a specific advantage. As he said, quote, it gives you a vision of what they're looking for in the postseason. And he said, quote, I get it now. It's exciting. It's motivating the players. He brought up the idea of bragging rights. And like James Worthy, for anybody who's watched him in his Lakers coverage, and he's phenomenal.
Yep.
He is not one to mince words or lie on air. And like if he thought this tournament was silly, I don't think he would crap on it because he's working for a network that is partners with the league and a league team and whatever. But I think he would just talk about the standings and keep it moving. I thought that was a really interesting way of framing it.
It is. And is it totally accurate? I mean, maybe for some teams it is, for others it isn't. I mean, I think, here's what I think it is. It is ultimately, certainly to this point, no harm, no foul. I mean, assuming you don't get all worked up, and I'm not somebody who's going to get worked up about the courts, other than I need some of them to be toned down a little bit, just because the experience of watching games on like the Chicago Bulls in
red has become a problematic color.
But it's like that particular, like the Portland red wasn't as bad as like that Chicago red is.
But it wasn't good.
It wasn't good. But I thought, okay, so fix that. But it's like, okay, fine. The court's different. I mean, I'm not averse to change for change's sake. And it's really kind of no harm, no foul. So if you're not that interested in it, again, other than the courts, and the Lakers have a good looking one. I mean, I wouldn't mind the court being that gold color all the time. It doesn't get in the way. And in terms of the players taking it seriously, okay, yeah, a lot of these guys are worth a ton of money, but like think of it this way. If you make $5 million in the league, and that's like Torian Prince, basically. 500K is 10% of your earnings for the year. Like if somebody
for doing your job,
for just doing your job, you don't have to do anything differently other than win that last game. You don't have to do anything differently. And by the way, maybe get a trip to Vegas, which I don't care. These guys get to go. They live in luxury when they go there. NBA players like going to Vegas. If somebody were to incentivize me and my work and say you can make 10% of your income for doing basically what it is you were doing anyway, just make sure you're locked in doing that stuff. Like, okay, you got my attention. Let's say if you make $10 million, $500K is still 5% of your income for doing exactly. Okay, 5%, that gets my attention too. So when you think about it, we're so used to how much the astronomical amounts of money that these guys make that you can lose track of the fact that for most of America, it takes over 5 years to make $500,000. That is a
lucky
bleep ton of money.
Lucky.
Yes, that is a ton of money. So yeah, I think the league has incentivized it in a decent way. I think it is kind of no harm, no foul. And what we say, my daughter, who's 5, was describing to me something. It's a very important concept that they talk about at kindergarten. Don't yuck someone's yum. You know what? Like if this tournament isn't for you, it's not really getting in the way. And if somebody else likes it, you don't have to, to poop on them. Don't yuck their yum. Like let people kind of get into it. And it's a fun thing for the league to try. And it seems to be working. And it worked really well for the Lakers, whether it's because they love the in-season tournament or if it's because most of Group A, as it turns out, is filled with terrible, terrible basketball teams.
Well,
the Lakers,
they still won by 32.
No, yeah, it's all good. I'm just transitioning out of this conversation. The Lakers win Group A with a 131-99 victory over the Utah Jazz. Very similar to the Memphis game, Andy, where they were in control throughout. And got to sit LeBron and Anthony Davis late. LeBron didn't even play 25 minutes. He was barely over 24. Just like the Memphis game, it was in front of a back-to-back. The Lakers play tonight a much more difficult game against the Mavericks, as it was the last time when the Lakers got Sacramento. So a lot of similarities with that game and this game. We'll unpack it all and talk about a potentially consequential injury that could be, don't like the sound of that, to Cam Reddish. All that next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by eBay Motors, and our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting for the waiver wire, every week we are going to provide you with players guaranteed to fit your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for us for this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. Among others, old friend Alex Caruso. As of this recording, Caruso is averaging double figures in November. The last 6 straight games hitting double figures, over 60% from the field, over 50% from behind the arc, plus a steal per game. That is some nice production from a player that a lot of Laker fans wish was still in purple and gold. Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. And it's the same with your vehicle. There's nothing worse than having your car break down in real time. True story. I once had to pull over because the car that I was driving on the way to trade it in, the engine caught on fire. And obviously you cannot be on the road with your car literally in flames. That would not have happened if I had access to over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die made available for you by eBay Motors. And you can make sure that your ride stays running smoothly with brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at those prices, you're burning rubber, not cash or your car. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
All right, Andy mentioned the Lakers playing tonight against the Mavericks, who have opened up very strong to start the season. A little bit unexpected, I think, better than most people thought. Of course,
they have slowed down, though, in ways people expected.
Yeah, that's true. You can catch every minute of the broadcast with Sirius XM. This is a 7:30 game. You catch every minute of the broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search Lakers. It is really hard for me to say SXM app. I just struggle with that, but I am a professional, and we got through it. This game, it was another one of these things where the Lakers did everything you would want ahead of a tougher game on the second night of a back-to-back. LeBron, 24 minutes. Anthony Davis, 29 minutes. Everyone, except for Taurean Prince, who played, and we can talk about that. Everyone really had positive things to contribute, whether it was in the regular part of the game or in garbage time, whatever it is. You just hope it translates into a better effort and a better game than it did against Sacramento the last time we saw this movie.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they learn the lesson from it. Whatever they diagnosed as the problem when it came to coming out just completely flat in that Sacramento game, not taking advantage of the opportunity they had in front of them in terms of rest. Like, I know in that particular game, or in that particular case, they had played like 3 games in 4 nights or 5 nights, something like that. Second end of a back-to-back. I think this will be like 6th game.
I think it's 6 and 9
nights.
So
right,
it's still a lot.
Again, back-to-back, but at the same time, like, this is the NBA. Like, this is the way the season works. It's the way the season works for all teams. If you're going to be a contending level team, you have to learn how to deal with this sort of stuff, get through it. And, this is about as good of a setup as you can possibly get for all of the key players, other than Cam Reddish, who may not be available for this game against Dallas. He left with a strained groin. There was no real information offered to us after that, other than they're going to evaluate it today. We might get some word before the Dallas game. Wasn't quite sure when it happened, other than it must have been very early, because Max Christie entered the game during the first quarter, and it was before we even knew anything was wrong with Reddish. I thought maybe it was a sign that Darvin was messing with the rotation a little bit and possibly giving what had been Jackson Hayes's minutes to Christie and just going smaller. And then it turned out, no, Reddish is hurt. The upside is Christie actually played well, and these were minutes that he really could use. Darvin actually offered some interesting perspective on Christie's lack of playing time. And he talked about he's got, a great young, bright future, thought he's going to be, said he will be with us for a long time. He brought up needing to learn more about navigating screens on the ball. He said he navigates them really well off ball, but tends to get preoccupied with who's screening him, as opposed to trying to get into the ball handler, dictating where the guy can or can't go. And he said that, like, circumstances notwithstanding, he was happy to see Christie get this time, do well in it. And look, he might be in for some big minutes against Dallas tonight. So good to see him, get a little bit of run and do well with it.
It was funny, Darvin talked about garbage time at the end of the game, and the Lakers finished with just going back and look, with Wood, Hayes, Hachimura, Reaves, and Christie on the floor. These are players who are pretty, generally speaking, pretty prominent parts of the regular non-garbage rotation. They're just out of players. And so they don't really have a lot of guys to do a garbage time rotation, which is not good. But yeah, I mean, Christie, it is hard to play well in spot minutes. You got 24 of them on on Tuesday, which
especially
is,
when you're a young player,
right? Which is not far more than Christie normally has gotten. It's not technically not a season high. He played 28 minutes against Houston in that blowout loss, but it's just he has not gotten a lot of minutes. Most of the nights that he's played, if he plays, you're talking 5 minutes, 8 minutes, a minute and a half, whatever it might be. And they're going to need him at this point. It's interesting to hear Darvin talk about like some of the things that Christie needs to work on. I don't necessarily think those are things that have kept him from playing. Like, you can't play until you figure this out. It's not. I don't see it necessarily just like a football team with a running back where the guy who seems explosive when he's got the ball in his hands can't play because he can't block. He can't protect the quarterback on passing downs, whatever it might be. I think it's just Reddish has played really well. Mm-hmm. And their logic was to try to establish Reddish early in the season, to extract that value and to get him going, to see if they could turn him into something. And it worked. And so that was surprising, I think, to a lot of people, both as a strategic choice and in terms of how well it did. And Christie seems to have been kind of caught in that. Now he's got to go play. I mean, all we have to work on is currently at least is the footage of Reddish walking into the locker room on Tuesday, and he looked uncomfortable. And, you got to be careful with a groin. At the very least, I'd be surprised if he played tonight. Maybe he plays into the weekend. I think the first step will be, does he travel with the team to Cleveland after Thanksgiving as they go to Cleveland to play on Saturday? I mean, it's a silver lining, because the way Reddish had played for a defense that has, been a top 10 group over the course of the year has been outstanding and surprising. But everyone had high expectations and high hopes for Christie coming into the season. So this is his opportunity to show, okay, I'm ready to play too. May not be space for me to play when everybody's healthy, but hey, I can do it. I mean,
but by the way, too, given who they're playing tonight with Kyrie and with Luka, and they're down Jared Vanderbilt, they're down Gabe Vincent, may not have Cam Reddish like you. I would be very pleasantly surprised if he did play, but even if he did, you don't know how effective he's going to be. That's a lot of point of attack defender that you are going to be trying to compensate without. If he's not available, Reddish, that means Christie is likely going to have a very important defensive role in this game at the very least. They're likely going to, I imagine Darvin's going to be telling him something like, you just focus on Kyrie, Luka, both, whatever. Don't care if you score a single point in this game. Try to make life difficult for them without picking up a bunch of fouls.
Before we go to break, who do you think he'd start? Who do you think starts if
Christie?
If Christie, you think Christie starts if Reddish can't play, just slides into that spot?
Yeah,
it makes the most sense to me. I was just curious what you thought.
Yeah, it keeps the rotation as intact as possible, and Dallas is not a big enough team that you would feel like, okay, you got to go with Christian Wood or something like that. Or, I mean, I suppose it could be Rui, but were I to guess, he's going to look to keep the rotation intact and go with Christie. Like, I think Darvin kind of tipped his hand a little bit in that he just kept Christie to start the second half of this game without Reddish. So that is my guess.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too. I was just curious what you thought. Andy, we are 15 games into this season. It has been a really odd, odd 15 games. It's been frustrating. It has been not frequently exhilarating, a couple big blowout wins notwithstanding. Lakers have an opportunity to change a little bit of that, again, win against a good team tonight. But 15 games into the season, I was thinking about this earlier today. I'm wondering where if you're satisfied with kind of the record and where things stand and what things look like, all things considered. I know I have a thought about it. Curious about yours. Talk about it.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel, and you can celebrate this NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets back with any $5 winning moneyline bet. Again, just $5 moneyline bet, you get $150 in bonus bets back. You can use those bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, futures, all sorts of fun stuff. The app is really easy to use. All those options right at your fingertips, and you can also bet on a little bit of basketball. LeBron right now, 75-1 to win MVP as of this recording. Anthony Davis, 41-1. AD also 6-1 to win Defensive Player of the Year, on the rise, only behind three-time winner and recently choked Rudy Gobert, who is at 5.5-1 last I checked. Austin Reaves, 9-1 for sixth man of the year. So visit FanDuel.com/locked on. Enjoy the NFL season with an offer you don't want to miss. Sports with an offer you don't want to miss. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. So before we even get into my thoughts on where things stand after 15 games, we need to make sure to note LeBron. This is going to be a continual thing with LeBron, because when it comes to scoring, he is at the top of the list. So
right. Definitionally, every time he scores, he sets a new NBA scoring record.
Right. But tonight, he became the first player in NBA history to eclipse 39,000 career points. To put this a little bit in perspective, the next closest active player is Kevin Durant at about 27,300. He's in his 16th season. I also was thinking about this, LeBron compared to other Lakers. The next two highest in terms of career points, Anthony Davis, a little bit, about 16,100. He is in his 12th season now. He's averaged 24 points per game on his career. Like, this is like a Hall of Fame type average. And then D'Angelo Russell, who's at a little bit over 9,000. In his 9th season, he's averaged a little under 18 points per game, which is nothing to sneeze at.
Pretty good.
Yeah. The two of them together are in their 21st season combined, like LeBron in his 21st season. Together, they are about 14,000 points behind LeBron together.
He's got a lot of points. He scored a lot.
It's just amazing. It's really, truly. I know longevity, blah, blah, blah. You still got to do this at an exceptionally high level.
It's not longevity. I mean, it's longevity averaging no less than like 25 points a game the entire time.
He's averaged 27 per game for his career.
I mean, I forgot what he averaged as a rookie, but it wasn't like he entered the league. He wasn't one of these guys who entered the league averaging like 6 points a game either. Nope. It's not that, yes, you got to play a long time to do this stuff, but he's, it was 2 seasons ago, he averaged 30 points a game. I mean, like, he's still putting up numbers here. And it's going to be real hard for anybody to catch him. I think that is fair to say.
KD is basically going to have to maintain his career averages from now until the end of his career without missing another game in order to pass LeBron.
Right, playing until he's like 42.
Right, or play like 23 seasons, something like that.
Right, because LeBron is still adding to the numbers. Thankfully, they don't stop the game every time he scores because he set a record. But like, that's what he's adding to it every single time. And unless he decides he doesn't want to play next year, he's going to add to it then too. And with big numbers, because again, he's still performing at an incredibly high level. And he played very well on Tuesday. I mean, the Lakers got positive contributions all the way up and down the box score. D'Lo, 7 of 9 from the floor, 20 points, 8 assists. What really stuck out to me, no turnovers against those 8 assists. Very controlled game that he's been playing all year long, and hit 3 of his 4 3-pointers, which is a nice bounce back for him. LeBron, 17, 7 and 9, and AD 26, 16 and 4 with 2 steals. I mean, he was great. Rui had 12, Austin Reaves had 19, plus 5 and 5. Like, it was a good game up and down. And what I was thinking about earlier was just this. Like, I think you would agree the Lakers haven't looked the way that we hoped they would in the regular season, correct? I mean, I'm not putting words in your mouth, am I?
No, is in terms of the best vision of
Right.
this team heading into it. No, they have not.
If I asked you, if I said before the season started, because we spent a lot of time talking about the schedule, how difficult it was, particularly over these first 15 or 20 games. If I said to you, I will just grant you the Lakers at 9-6 after 15 games. You might miss out on the upside. Maybe if they played the games, they'd be, 11-4. Maybe they'd be 10-5. Maybe it'd be 12-3, whatever it is. But if I said they could be 9-6 and you're just, that's it. Would you have taken that?
I would have been unhappy.
I would have. If somebody said you could just have that, I would have said, okay. I'd have taken 9-6.
Definitely wouldn't have been unhappy about it. I thought LeBron summarized things pretty well. He was asked after the game something along the lines of his assessment of the team.
Yep.
And he said that he doesn't know quite yet what they have because they have not been whole at any point this entire season. They have not had Jared Vanderbilt the entire year. They've missed Gabe Vincent for about 2/3 of the season. They missed Rui for a handful of games. So, they're still trying to figure out who they are. But in the meantime, they still have to try to execute as best they can on both ends of the floor. But LeBron noted that he feels like he trusts everybody on this team when they step on the floor. And, for all the hand wringing over this team, and there have been reasons to wring your hands. Like you said, they're 3 games above 500, and they're also undefeated against teams under 500, which isn't necessarily an achievement, but it's how at least competent teams stack wins while figuring out who they are and how to be the best version of themselves. And it's also how legit contenders who know exactly who they are stack their record when they're trying to get home court throughout the playoffs. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, in a lot of ways, they've handled their business, even if they have not looked particularly inspiring along the way. It's very much like the doctor's oath, first do no harm. Yep. They've not harmed themselves at all.
Yeah. And I was thinking of LeBron's quote when I asked the question, because, and you already mentioned it, this idea that we don't really know what we are yet. And look, I understand all teams have had players in and out of the lineup, and then we're not whole and this and that. The Lakers have been it's been an inconsistent also too, sort of lack of wholeness, where it's different people in and out of the lineup. And, it's a couple of days, games, it's been AD and then, LeBron. And so it's like, they haven't been able to play 7 games with the same people, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8 games in a row with the same people, even if Vanderbilt's gone and Vincent is gone and whatever. And I think when you put all those things together and they're still 9-6, okay. I don't know what this road trip's going to hold. This is a tough road trip. Starts in Cleveland, or they might get a break. Donovan Mitchell has been out with a hamstring problem. He is not going to play. They've already said he's not playing tonight in Cleveland's game. Whether he's ready to play on Saturday, obviously nobody knows. But you catch a break with Cleveland without Donovan Mitchell, okay. But that's a tough game. And Philly, Detroit, you ought to be able to win that one. But this is a tough road trip. I'm okay with where they are, because I feel like there is no reason to believe they can't get better. Vanderbilt's sort of on his way back, it seems like. Outside shooting should improve just naturally because Reaves got off to such a bad start and Russell's been inconsistent. But those guys are kind of getting it together, and that should start to elevate. LeBron has been great. AD has overall been great. I don't feel like there's any gigantic flaw that I look at and say, uh-oh. I mean, they've got flaws, but every team's got flaws. I don't see it where I feel like our initial take on what this team could be has been proven wrong.
Well, I mean, put it this way right now. If the playoffs began today, the Lakers would be a 6th seed, and they would be avoiding the play-in altogether. They've also, I believe, with the result of this win, or maybe even a little bit before that, their point differential now is in the positive, which again may not feel like some massive achievement, but for like the first few weeks of this season, they were decidedly in the negative.
Yeah.
So it's just indicative of trending in the right direction, even if you may not see the light at the end of the tunnel, but there's reason to believe that it's worth traveling through the tunnel. And it's also important to remember that, like, you don't have to discover it right now. Like, it's reassuring to feel like everything's just clicking and it's awesome. That's when it's most fun. That's when it's most exciting. But the truth is, they don't have to be the best version of themselves right now, but they're not hurting themselves in this process of figuring out whatever those next steps are.
Right.
They haven't done any damage.
No. And, again, it's they see Oklahoma City as the at the end of the road trip, which is always a tough game. The back-to-back next Wednesday and Thursday, Detroit and Oklahoma City. We'll be having hopefully a very similar conversation a week from today, basically after the Detroit game, where they play it and blow out another team ahead of a very difficult game on the second night of a back-to-back.
Good.
They are good. They are fun.
Oh my God,
they're fun team to watch play between Chet and Shea. Oh man, that's a fun team to watch. I did mention the Mavericks game again. Another reminder: you can catch every minute of that broadcast. Lakers Mavericks 7:30 on Sirius XM on the SXM app. You search Lakers. Reminder: you've seen the banner if you've been watching on the YouTube channel about the subtext channel. That's one-on-one text communication with us, the Kamenetsky brothers. We'll have reaction news, rumors. We're going to play around with mailbags, all that kind of stuff we'll be using on the show. But just another way to kind of communicate, be part of the show, and talk Lakers. So you go to subtext.com/LockedOnLakers, and you can get a free
join subtext.com.
Join subtext.com/LockedOnLakers for a free 14-day trial. We will see everybody after the game tomorrow.